in some ways, our United Youth hasn't changed from 10, 15, 20 years ago. It's still about passionate young people, raw, hungry, doing ridiculously silly things on occasions, and loving God and loving Jesus and loving the church in the process.
It's more than a youth group, it's become a youth movement.
There's no set way of doing it. It's something funny is always kind of happening.
The message doesn't change, but the methods do.
Well, I pray that the passion and the commitment and the raw hunger for God hasn't changed.
For most people, I think United is new for them, but for our church, our youth ministry is as old as our church is.
We started Hillsong Church in 1983. I guess I always wanted the type of church that had a freshness to it, and always wanted to have lots of young people.
The first youth meeting I went to was at Pastor Brian's house, and he had his guitar and he led the worship. So knowing how to run, I was so daggy.
I would say the youth group was basic. I mean, we had a young Bible college student called Darko Koljak, who had a Croatian background, and he came down from the Blue Mountains to Sydney, it's an hour and a half's drive, every week to lead this little youth group.
He was up there preaching about young people going for God, and in my heart I thought, I want to be one of those young people, but I didn't know if God could ever use me.
He said that we were a Jesus army, all 10 or 15 of us, and we believed him.
But he was full of vision and very keen to sort of work in and make the youth a big part of the church.
Well, although everything was a lot smaller and really a lot more basic, there was definitely an incredibly high level of passion and excitement and enthusiasm for God and what he wanted to do.
Then when our youth pastor moved on, I remember Brian saying for months, we've got to pray for our new youth pastor, and I was like, yeah, we've so got to pray for our new youth pastor. I wasn't the kind of person who wanted to be the leader. I was happy to support the leader, but knew clearly that that's what God wanted me to do and take it to the next stage.
In the early days under Darko, it really started to grow and form, and then Donna brought this amazing shape to the youth ministry.
She was just an unbelievable woman who led the way in every area and always encouraged and brought out the best in us.
Well, Psalm 100 verse 2 says, serve the Lord with gladness, and that really is one of Pastor Brian's main values for our church and what goes on in the life of our church. And when we were getting started, there wasn't a lot of resources, we didn't have a lot of things, but we had this desire to maximize whatever we had to really see God have a huge impact in the lives of young people.
There was a real sense of dreaming big in those days. The atmosphere and the spirit of it was probably in a lot of ways really similar to still what it is today.
Sitting and watching Donna preach every Saturday night, and it was good times.
It was about 8 or 9 years later, and I was asked to move into another area of church life. So Phil and Lucinda taking over, by now they got married finally, was just natural, ready. It was all ready.
But when Lucinda and I had the privilege of taking on the leadership of our youth ministry, which was about 10 years ago, there were awesome things happening already, and it was just, such a privilege to take on the responsibility. And I think all of us knew in our hearts that if we really sowed into this thing, that we could see God do something even more amazing in our midst.
I just remember Phil and Lucinda taking on the youth ministry. It was all like really big deal. Like Phil and Lucinda are taking on the youth ministry.
We were just so excited. We could not believe the opportunity that had come our way, and just wanted to build an incredible army of young people who would change the face of the earth.
But I never left youth ministry. I was sent from it. I want you to know that. So whenever I go to youth now, I cry at it because it's still in there. It's awesome.
The youth group I came from was like 4 people, so it was like the biggest change to go from like 4 people to hundreds of people.
I've been in the church basically my whole life, so as soon as I was old enough, I wanted to be in the youth ministry.
I kind of started going to youth like when I was about a year too young to go, just because I wanted to be one of the big kids.
I don't know if it was Phil or Matt, like one of those guys came and picked me up and felt like you're just going to love, youth. It's just going to be great.
It was cool though. It was small and it was kind of family, I guess.
I don't know, like it's just one of those things where you immediately feel at home, all the young people are really pumped to be there and, seeking God really hard out.
I was just like, these people are just absolutely crazy, it's weird that people like God and that they're kind of normal kind of people.
Like you never knew what was going to happen, but I kind of think like our youth leaders didn't know what was going to happen either. They just kind of like everyone would get together and it was just anything could happen and probably did.
Well, one thing we really said was youth group cannot be boring. I mean, we just had to be committed to making youth group the most fun place to be.
Christians don't have to be boring! We are exciting people! Get out there, man!
It was always fun. Even when it was small, even when everything went wrong, look at Phil's personality. It was always fun, even when it went tragically wrong. In fact, that was often why it was fun.
It was always about making youth just the best it could be.
We wanted it to be large, we wanted it to be fun, we wanted it to have such a sense of God.
I remember before youth all day, just crying out to God for the night, and being so hungry but just scared as anything that it wouldn't work. It was really exciting and really scary kind of times because we literally sit around after a youth night and we go, man, what can we do next week to make sure kids are going to come back?
There was a real excitement and an expectancy, and to be part of the youth ministry was just it was just fun.
And we really got passionate, not just about doing a great youth ministry, but about equipping young people to reach their friends.
Like most youth ministries in the early days, the idea of getting into schools was to get the youth pastors and the youth leaders out there to reach kids. But as time went by, we started to realise that we didn't need to get into schools in a sense if our students are already in the schools.
Well, for me to go into a high school, there is a level of effectiveness in the way I can relate to young people. But when a young person, a student in a high school, understands that they can be a missionary in that high school, I'll tell you what, they can have more impact in that school than I ever could.
Pretty much we decided that what we had here at Wildlife and at United, we wanted to take it to our schools. We wanted to see young kids' lives changed. And so with me and a group of guys and girls from my school, we just decided that we're going to put something on for the students that they'd love and also that could change their lives and change our school. We started off with about 10 of us, and by the end of the year we had at least 70 people coming along, and it really changed the school, and not just when I was there, but also the lunchtime group's still going and seeing it grow and just keep moving forward, and it's just had an awesome impact.
Well, as things were continuing to grow with the high school youth ministry, we had to keep looking for new venues, and I remember we went from one place into this old hairdressing salon that no one wanted to lease. We did a big renovation on it. Well, we thought it was big. We painted every wall a different colour. We thought that was pretty cool. Maybe it was back in the 90s. And after we kind of outgrew that, we then moved upstairs.
And we met in what was the preschool, the toddler's room.
The whole group fitted in the little children's creche room with hand paintings on the wall. It's the most uncool room to run youth ministry in.
And then we moved into the rock climbing gym, and I tell you, it was so much fun. There's obviously all the ropes and things to climb on, and we used to get guest speakers, and we'd kind of put them on a rope from a viewing platform and swing them in, and sometimes they'd land in the right spot, sometimes they didn't, but we prayed that God would look after them.
I think it's important too, to realise, because United is not a band or an album, and it's not a label or a brand. United is a spirit of a local church youth ministry that always was and always will be just about reaching young people to Christ.
When they're at youth and when they're at church, but also when they're at home, it's part of our DNA.
When I started getting involved, I was probably about 13 or 14 or maybe, something around then. It was we'd just get together during the week and be like, okay, how are we going to make this Friday night amazing? And it's funny because all these years later, everything's much bigger and it feels like there's this big machine, but in reality, during the week, it's exactly the same. There's just all these kind of just people who are willing and who love it, just getting together and going, okay, how can we make this Friday night the best possible? How can we best kind of, connect young people to God?
I guess in a lot of ways, not much has changed. It's gotten so much bigger, but when it all comes down to it, it's still about youth leaders and young people. It's about the connect groups and discipling people and impacting schools. It's just that we now can do it on a bigger scale than we ever imagined.
We want to be a youth ministry that brings the goodness of God into the lives of people wherever they are and shows them the power of the church.
And everything we do is about God and about people, about loving God and having an intimate relationship with Jesus.
We've got 2 campuses, we've got junior high, senior high, young adults ministries happening, so 6 different programs, plus extension services happening. And
it's always evolving and just like, okay, how are we gonna do it now? You know, this is where we're at. What are we gonna do? All right, this is who we've got. Everyone, what can you offer? How can we make this work?
Because I think people love to be in an environment where they feel like they can bring something and feel like they can contribute, whether it's like, you know, sit out chairs or like singing or, you know, playing an instrument or just, you know, or praying for someone, you know, like people love to contribute and people love to bring something.
And I think that's what makes it tick and what makes it great, and I love that hasn't changed in the midst of all the other stuff that's happening.
I think the cool thing for us is that like this is our lives, like it's not just an event that we go to, but it's like our week in, week out lives.
Well, I suppose when I think about the future, I just have a desire and an understanding that if we can continue to stay right before God and just listen to His voice, that who knows where God can take what we're about.
I think, and I really mean this, I really think if our youth ministry that was passionate but really ordinary, full of just real people, can pursue God with all their heart, have a dream, and see so far God do some amazing things, and it's still the best ahead, then I think, and any youth ministry can do this.
I'd just like to see United keep going forwards, and whatever that means, I don't think that we have to put any limitations on what God can do.
As big as we can dream, I think that we can accomplish, you know, as long as we never lose our eyes on the main goal, and that's, you know, is presenting the message of Jesus and the gospel to all men.
I love what Jesus said. He said, I'm going to go and be with my Father, that I'm going to leave the Holy Spirit here with you, and you will therefore do greater works than I have done. And I think the heart of God is that all the generations will do greater than the ones that have gone before.
I'm a leader of like some young guys in the youth, and I actually place more importance on that than on a lot of things in my life, you know, on seeing them flourish and on seeing them be amazing people, you know, as they get older and as their friends come to church and praying with them and prophesying over them and, you know, give them a slap every now and then.
United to me is like this, it's just this evolving thing, you know, it's this evolving understanding of what God is to young people and what God can do in young people. And
I would hope that like wherever United heads in the next, you know, 5-10 years, that the heart of it would still be like, you know what, we're just people serving in our local church, being faithful, and we just love God, and we just place a lot of value on kids, like getting to know their Creator through worshiping, getting to know their God through praise and jumping up and down and being crazy, but not just hype, but like something real.
We're all about just seeing young people kind of fulfill their potential and like use whatever they've got, whatever creativity they have or whatever giftings they have or whatever, to kind of just to love God more and to reach more people, and you know, and as long as we stay focused on the thing that we're focused on, which is reaching young people, connecting them to God, I think there's no end to what God can do with that, because He loves that heart that's just like, hey, I'll do whatever.
But it's sure not what we're doing. I think our message is the gospel, helping our community, and I think we've only just started. It's amazing.